Hi, I'm Jesse with Papago Vans, and I'm going to walk you through the features and operations of your new Papago build. So first thing you notice when you walk into the van is going to be the main light switch. And you just press it once and the lights will dim on. And then if you hold it down, you'll actually dim them down and it will remember exactly where you left it. So you can then turn it off, turn it back on. It goes right back to that dimness setting. And you can hold it down until it goes maximum bright as well. There's also a remote inside that does the exact same thing. Next to the lights here, we have the awning light switch. Here on your control panel, you may have a couple different buttons depending on the options in your van, but I'll go over all the basics here. First off, your battery monitor here, you can see that our batteries are currently at 83%. Depending on your build, this one does have 400 amp hours of battery life, and right now we're down to 331 remaining amp hours, which is displayed here. You see those little arrows pointing down, that means we're currently losing power, not gaining power, and that is shown right here. Right now we just have the lights on inside and it's taken about 2 amps, so -2 amps power consumption, and this is a time estimate here. If we're at 83% using 2 amps, we can do this for 99 hours and 56 minutes before we're gonna be dead. Nice thing is this constantly updates, as you see it even doing so right now. So as soon as you start turning more things on, we start using more power, that will give you a new estimate. You really want to pay attention here whenever you're running things that use a lot of power, like the air conditioning unit. You don't want to run that 24/7 and end up killing your batteries. You just want to be conservative with it and make sure that you're not going to wake up with dead batteries because you tried running it all night. Just before you go to bed, check the time frame there. Give it a minute when you first turn things on to kind of equalize and show you really where we're at. This will also show if you're charging. So right now we're losing power, but let's just say we were plugged into shore power, or the engine was running, or we were in good sunlight, which today right now we're not, then it would be showing positive amps, and this would flip around and be telling you how much time until we're at 100%. So if we were in good sunlight right now, we might be seeing plus 10 amps, and this might say 20-30 minutes before we're at 100%. Keep in mind this is also always telling you the net difference. So for example, if let's say we're charging at 10 amps from the solar, but we're using 2 amps, then this would show a total of 8 amps. Even though we're still getting 10 from the solar, it's showing the difference. This tells the battery voltage and the wattage. Not as important at a glance. You really want to know how many amps are we drawing, how much time do we have till we're dead, or how much amps are we gaining, and how much time do we have until we're at 100%. Coming down here, this is your inverter. Like I said, you have a 12-volt battery system, but you do have outlets throughout the van, just like at home, that are 110 volts. And that's what this inverter charger does. It's going to convert your 12-volt power into 110-volt power. You just heard the microwave click on as soon as I turned this on, because it is plugged into an outlet up in the cabinet, which I'll show you in a minute, and any other outlets you find throughout the van. If you ever go to plug something in, it doesn't work, it's probably just because your inverter is not on. In the middle, this switch has the off, and then you flip it up for inverter on. There is this power save mode on the bottom. That can tend to confuse some people. I just recommend don't use it at all. What it would actually do is it would put the inverter in standby mode, and every couple seconds it's going to kick on to see if anything is drawing power, and then it's going to turn back off. If you're not using it, the best way to save power is just to have it off. The power save mode will still consume power, and you really just don't need the inverter on all the time. Anything critical in this van is all going to be 12 volts, so really you're just turning on the inverter to use anything that's plugged into an outlet, and I'll go over what all those things are here in just a minute. We are currently out in the parking lot and I am not plugged into shore power, so when I turn it on, this light comes on that says inverter on. So it's drawing from the batteries to give you the 110 at the outlets. If we were plugged in, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, this top light would have come on. It would say battery charger. And that means that all the power you're using in the van is coming from that cable. And that's also simultaneously charging your batteries. And you'd see right here that would say plus 60 or whatever the case may be, however many amps you're charging at when you turn that on. This screen down here is a bit redundant information to this screen. I prefer this one, so you can turn that screen on and off with this little button right here. Moving over here, we have your water pump. When you first turn this on, you might hear the pump just kick on for a second to pressurize the system. Once there's pressure in the system, the pump just automatically kicks on. And then as you open and close a faucet, the pump will just automatically kick on and off as needed. You can leave this water pump button on, that's not a problem. But I do recommend If you're gonna leave the van for a long period of time, just turn it off. That way the whole system isn't constantly under pressure. Also, when you're sleeping, you might notice if you ever leave this on, the pump might kick on for a couple, split seconds every 10 minutes just to repressurize as it slowly loses pressure, and that might keep you awake. So a lot of people find that they want to turn that off before they go to bed. The shower drain. In our shower, there is a smart drain that senses water, and it'll automatically kick on a pump that evacuates the water out of the shower pan and puts it down into the gray water tank. If you're ever showering and your shower pan is starting to overflow and not go down the drain, it's probably because you forgot to turn on this shower drain button. You'll hear that pump just automatically kick on as it needs to as you're showering. When you're done, be sure you come back and turn that off. And then your water heater is down here. You want to turn this on about 15 minutes before you want to take a shower or you want hot water at any of the other faucets. It is an electric water heater. It is a 4 gallons. However, that's way too hot to shower with, so you're going to probably mix it about half and half. So you're going to get about an 8-gallon shower, which should be more than enough for even 2 people to take back-to-back showers. But you want to make sure you remember to turn this on 15 minutes beforehand. Let that heat up, leave it on while you shower, and then when you're done, be sure you turn it off, especially if you're off-grid. That will eventually kill your batteries. It does take a lot of power. If you're plugged in, you don't really need to worry about it. We did give you this handy indicator here that lets you know that it is currently heating. You can also tell by the amp draw up here. We're drawing 130 amps right now because that water heater is cooking to heat up that water as fast as it can. And it is, like I said, 110 volts. It's plugged into an outlet underneath the bed, which I'll show you in a minute. But if you ever forgot to turn on the inverter, that's what this indicator light here is for. The water heater, even though you pushed the button, is not heating because there's no power to it. So that's your indicator, your reminder. Make sure you turn on your inverter first. Then when you go ahead and turn on your water heater, you'll see that light come on. When you see this drop back down to whatever you were at before, -2 amps instead of the -130, then you know water is hot and you're ready to take your shower. This is your water level indicator. This is your freshwater tank that is inside the van underneath the bed. The backlight just comes on and off with the water pump button, but we're currently just at a 1/4 tank right there. If your van is equipped with it, this is your WeBoost. You can download their app. You can register it using the code on here. There's no buttons or switches on the unit itself. It's simply plug it in and it will start working. So we provide a cigarette lighter style outlet here. Once you plug it in, it's going to go green. I think it flashes red a few seconds, then goes back to green, and that's it. This does not require any kind of a data plan or anything. There's a big antenna up on top of the roof that is just taking in any cell phone signal around, and it's bringing it in and boosting it out of this little antenna here, so your phone just gets a better signal. If you are so far out there somewhere where there's no cell phone signal at all, then there's nothing for it to pick up, then it doesn't really do anything, but it'll typically help you stream faster and just get an all-around better signal on your phone. If you don't need it, if your phone's got a perfectly fine signal, you're around town or whatever, I would suggest leaving it unplugged. It does use power, and just plug it in when you need it. This is your Espar Heater. This is going to be the little vent underneath the passenger seat. That's going to pump out a lot of heat, and even if you're in freezing temperatures, you can keep the inside of the van very warm. What's awesome about this unit is it is drawing fuel from the diesel tank of the van, so it's not using a lot of electricity, but really just using that fuel as the heat source. So you don't have any worries about killing your batteries. You can run this thing day and night, and I recommend that when you are somewhere super cold, just set a temperature and keep it on. There are a lot of functions to this, and you can read through the instruction, the owner's manual, and find out how to set all the timers and all that, but I'm just going to show you what you need to know here. The unit is currently off, and it's right now 75 degrees in the van. That thermometer is right here. These little holes are indicating that it's 75 degrees. You have a button in the middle here and a click wheel, and then a back button here. So I'm going to hover over those little heat waves that you see up top and enter those. It's going to ask me what temperature I want to set. Obviously, if I set something cooler than it is in here, then it's not going to turn on, but let's just say I wanted 78. Enter. And then you could tell it to run for 30 minutes and then turn off. That's what that would do. But the tip here is go back to infinity and select that. And what that's going to do is just constantly maintain the 78 degrees that you have selected. You can leave it like that all winter long while you're using the van. That red ring just indicates that the heater is on and it'll maintain that temperature. Now that you have that set, all you have to do is enter those heat waves again. It prompts you for off, and that is it. Otherwise, turn it back on. Heat waves, 78, infinity. I have a lot of people that get in their van, it's really cold. They think, let me turn this thing all the way up and it'll go up to 100. Don't do that. It'll still heat just as fast, but it'll keep going until you get to 100, and you can go to bed and wake up sweating hot, because it will do that. It will go up to 100. So actually set the temperature that you want on that Espar unit. Moving on to your fridge. Very simple operation. There's a dial right here that goes from 0 to 7. You'll feel a click when you go to it's off. And then 7 is going to be the coldest. I'd probably freeze about everything. I typically put mine at about 5. A couple things to note: a full fridge is an efficient fridge, so I would not leave this on if you have nothing in here. The compressor is just going to be non-stop running. But this is a very efficient unit, so once you have it full and you're out trip, you can leave this thing on for months at end. But if you get home after the end of a trip and you take everything out, I would turn it off. And then just one pro tip would be leave the door open and maybe set a towel in the bottom right here, so any frost that melts out of the ice box gets sucked up by the towel. We've all left a cooler with drinks in it too long and came back a week later and it smelled terrible. You don't want that same thing going on in your fridge here. So leaving this door open, next time you come out to your van, it's gonna be all dried out in here and stays nice and clean. You'll notice that the ice tray lid, it stays magneted up, which is really nice, but do be careful not to close the door on it. I have a lot of customers that'll break this door because they forget that. It's a deep ice tray, and you do have, it's an ice box, and then you do have an ice tray in here that you can fill as well. This is your induction cooktop. You just want to make sure that you are using induction compatible cookware. This is 110 volts and it is plugged into an outlet underneath the sink that you can see down there. So you want to make sure that the inverter is on, otherwise this just won't power up. So here's just a quick rundown of your equipment compartment. On the driver's side, you're going to find all of your electrical in here. This is your shore power plug down in here. This is a 30 amp receptacle. If you ever plug in and you turn on the inverter to power on and you're not finding any power, you're gonna wanna check the actual plug on the other end where this is plugged into. A lot of times those will have a little breaker right there, or if it's a GFCI, you hit that test reset button to reset their system. You may just not be getting power to the van. But as long as this is plugged in on the outside and that inverter is set to power on, you should be seeing anywhere from a 50 to a 60 amp charge, depending on how much power you're currently using. This is your actual inverter. Don't mess with any of the settings or switches on here. It's all preset, and the remote that's on your control panel inside is going to take priority over this switch on here as long as that is left off. You do have your 12 volt fuses right here. These are just automotive blade fuses, so if anything ever is not working, come back here and check the fuse. You may just need to replace that if one of those pops. That's just a real fail-safe. Here you also have your 110 volt breaker box. So this is your charging. So if there's ever a surge of charge when you're plugged in outside, or you just plug way too many things inside the van at once, you'll come back here and see that this is tripped. If your outlets don't work, that's the first thing you want to check. It is a bit of a redundancy. There is also a breaker attached to the inverter itself, and you just have to feel for it down here. So if your outlets ever don't work, first check that your inverter power is on, and if it is and you still don't have power, check the GFCI breaker that's actually on the wall in the van. That has the test reset button. Just go ahead and reset that, and if it still doesn't work, it's either a breaker down here or a breaker up here. They should all always be on. This is your master power switch right here. For the most part, I would just leave this on unless you're storing the vehicle for a long period of time, but as long as you're in the van using it, you can always leave this on. We would also turn that off for any kind of service. Below it down here, you're gonna find another breaker, and this is for the air conditioning unit. So if there's never power to that unit, come down here and reset that. You can even hear it just clicked on when I reset it. You do have an equipment compartment fan here that keeps fresh air flowing through the equipment. And there is a little rheostat knob on here, so you can adjust the fan speed. If that keeps you awake at night, you can come down here and turn it on. In the winter, you're totally fine, but in the summer, if things start getting real hot back here and equipment starts shutting down, you want to make sure that this is turned up so you have really good airflow in the equipment compartment. On this side, we have our water compartment. You see your freshwater tank right here. There is a floor-mounted drain valve right here. So if you open that, it's going to dump this whole tank just right outside onto the ground. So just make sure you're in an approved area to do that. Open that, you can empty the tank. For winterizing the vehicle, what you're going to want to do is open that and leave it open, let the whole tank completely drain out. And then you're going to want to go inside, turn on your water pump and run all of your faucets until all the water gets pushed out and it starts spitting air. And then simply turn off the water pump button. Leave the faucets open. That's going to pump most of the water out of the lines, enough to where whatever little bit is left in there, if it were to freeze, is not going to have enough to expand and break anything. The water pump can pump air and water, so as long as you leave that on for about a minute after it pushes all the water out, then it's pumping air through those lines and getting most of that air out. To fully winterize it as well, you can purchase RV antifreeze. I would recommend pouring that down the drains, both the shower and the sink, so that that gets down into the gray water tank as well, and any residual water sitting down in there that's underneath the van isn't going to freeze. You also have your back door shower right here. This plugs into this little guy right here. So in this build, our gray water tank is on the driver's side, but that location could vary depending on the build. After you get a feel for it, you're not always gonna have to get down on your hands and knees, but I'll get down here just to show you what you're looking for to empty this tank. You have the gray water dump valve right here. You'd pull this and it would come out, but you do need to remove the cap here first. That is threaded. If you wanted to hook a hose up to it to run the water into some kind of a dump station of some sorts, you can. This is just the gray water, so it's whatever you put down your sink and your shower. If you're trying to winterize the van, then you're going to want to open that cap, open this, and leave it open throughout the winter.